Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, as you seen in title and thumbnail. In this video we are going to see, what if Ash's heart stood between him and the Hoenn championship. This is movie. And for more comment down your thoughts and like share, also don't forget to check out author of this story named, To Melt the Heart of a Champion by Sage Ryok. All details in description. This was the first fanfic I worked on when I started getting to work on fanfic writing. I have corrected many errors and mistakes since the first time I wrote it. However, this story is incomplete. However, also, it will not stay that way. I am on chapter 7, and I have every intention of finishing this fic, even if it kills me. Good day. I don't own Pokemon either. Cries ag. Ain't, but I do own a few made-up characters in this story. Enjoy. To Melt the Heart of a Champion. Chapter 1 Confusing Start. Congratulations was the word first heard out of the announcer of the Hoenn League. After defeating every trainer that I had come across, I had tried for months and months to win the Hoenn League. This victory would bring me one huge step closer to fulfilling the dream of becoming a Pokemon Master. I was graded by my best friends, May, Brock, and May's little brother, Max. But someone was missing. Someone who was very important to me. Wake up. Wake up. Come on. A young girl yelled, trying to wake Ash up. Huh. Oh, it was a dream, the young boy muttered as he slowly rose up from his sleeping bag, sitting up, still unable to see things clearly. As he started to regain some of his focus, he came to see who had woken him up. Oh, hey May. Where's Brock? He and Max went to go get wood and water. We drew straws to see who was going to go. I won, so they had to go get the wood. But I think you boys need exercise anyways, she said happily as she sat down next to Ash. Oh, okay. Well, I guess round 1 starts tomorrow, huh? Yeah, you must be really excited. I'm absolutely positive that you'll do just fantastic out there, she said bubbly with a grin on her face. Are you okay? You don't seem to be acting like your usual self. Of course, I'm doing just fine. I'm just proud of you. And happy for you that you have come so far, as she rose to her feet, pointing her finger at him, giving a slight wink. Yeah, well, I suppose I should start my training then, huh? That's a wonderful idea. You and me could battle. I think I should try and get a feeling of what I'm going to be up against, so I think that I'll go face some other trainers. So you're scared now, or maybe, you think I'm just not in the same league as you, is that it? Huh, no, that's not it at all. He yelled, getting out of his sleeping and jumping to his feet quickly. I challenge you right here. Right now, Ash. Fine. It will be 2-on-2, alright Ash. That's fine by me. Little to Ash and May's knowledge, Max had actually returned just a few minutes ago, but Hoenn them arguing and didn't bother to even try and stop them. Why is she acting like this? Ash thought to himself. She's not acting like herself. She's acting a lot more feisty, in a way. Gotta think about the battle. Go Beautifly. May called, as she threw out a red and white colored ball, releasing a butterfly-like Pokemon that shimmered in happiness when released. Beautifly. How predictable. Alright Swellow. I choose you. Ash called out his Pokemon too, releasing a bird that was colored blue and had slight red around its neck. Beautifly. Use String Shot. As Beautifly fired a sliky thread at its opponent. Dodge it and use Endeavor Swellow. Swellow quickly dodged the string shot and hit Beautifly dead on. Beautifly. Come on Beautifly. Let's strike back with a gust attack. Beautifly tired, flapped its wings, releasing a tough blow of wind at Swellow. Swellow. Let's show that Beautifly what a real gust looks like. Swellow quickly struck back with its own gust attack, blowing Beautifly's gust off course, sending Beautifly into a whirlwind, as it fell to the ground. Beautifly is unable to battle. Swellow is the winner, Brock called, coming out from the bushes with Max. Huh. Oh, hey guys. Ash was excited to see his friend, Brock return with wood, along with May's little brother, Max, who was excited to see that there was a battle going on. Cool. You two are battling? Max asked. Dropped the bottles of water, rushing over to see the battle. We were battling, May said with a look of disgust on her face, as she returned Beautifly to its Pokeball. Huh, so you surrender? Ash asked, puzzled by her easy defeat. No, I'm resuming this battle another time. HMPH. May quickly turned around, and stomped away into the tent. Huh, what's wrong with her? Ash's though. TS quickly started going to back his dream though, as he quickly ignored what was going on with her. Brock looked at Ash, as he could tell what was going on. He noticed straight from the beginning, when they all drew straws. May had cheated and held the longest straw for herself, as the others picked the other 2 straws. Brock knew this all along, even knowing about Misty. He figured Ash would know what to do. So Brock didn't worry over this. But he could tell that Ash couldn't tell what May actually thinks of him. Hey Ash, could I talk to you for a moment? Huh, oh sure. Great work Swellow, he said as he petted Swellow, returning his Pokémon back to its ball. Ash thought to himself again, with thoughts of Misty in his mind. Why isn't she here? I want her to be here more than anyone else. She's important to me. I'm going to give her a call, when I get to Evergrande City today. Now forgetting about these thoughts, he walked up to Brock, and sat next to him, puzzled what he wanted to talk about. Okay Brock, what's up? Ash, what do you think of May? May, I think she's a good friend. Been acting a bit strange lately, but I guess that's how May is. Why? How do you think she feels towards you? I'm guessing she feels the same way towards me. What are you trying to say Brock? Brock hesitated for a second, as he put his ladle into the soup, wiping his hands off. Ash, I think she likes you a lot. Maybe, ya know, more than a friend. Huh, no way. Even if that's true, I can't be. He stopped himself there immediately, as he felt himself almost slip and say something he wasn't even sure of. Be what? Oh, nothing. I think I'm gonna go get more wood for the fire, it seems to be getting a little low. Brock, completely aware that he was just making excuses, saw that the fire was actually getting a little low now. Alright, but Ash, you need to talk this over with May. Ash ran quickly into the woods, trying to find a spot to sit down and think. He was running too fast. As he tripped and rolled into a somersault, right into a tree. Ow! Stupid rock! Stupid tree! He yelled stupidly, coming to his senses at the weird thing he was doing. Ash sighed and sat down on a large rock, shaped like a boulder. Finally, he thought, now I can sit here and actually think, but his thoughts quickly turned into daydreams as he started remembering all the times he had with Brock and Misty. And all they had been through on their journeys. Thoughts of when her and Brock had left, going back towards their homes. This thought brought a tear to his eye, as he smiled and stood up. With a confident smile on his face. Well, I guess I should get going, as he talked to himself, feeling a bit better. As he started to walk back towards the camp that Brock and the gang were all resting. He walked towards a river, forgetting that he was getting wood. But he figured he'd at least rinse his face off. He walked towards a small, shallow river, that was only knee-deep, and stuck his face right into the water. He gave himself a big grin, until he found himself pushed into the river, now all soaked. He quickly rose up with anger, as he jumped out of the water. Hey, what was that? You can't just. Ash immediately stopped talking, to see who was standing before him. Standing before him was a red-headed girl, with a small bunch of hair, tied up to the left, wearing a yellow STS. Misty. Hey Ash. Misty. Quote. The one and only. She said, spinning on the spot, and giving a wink. Did you push me in the water then? Hey, sorry about that. I couldn't resist, she said, sweat dropping. Typical Misty. Nothing too different about her, Ash thought. I'm glad she's here. Hey, Misty. How about we go back to the tent? Brock's making lunch and it'd be great if you'd join us. That sounds great Ash. How is Brock doing? She asked, as they started to walk back. Oh, ya know him. Same Brock. Still making good food, still getting distracted by girls. Max carries out your part pretty good. With pulling Brock's ear every time, grinning. Oh, well, that's good to hear. How have you been? I see you've got all 8 badges now. Oh yeah, now I'm on my way to Evergrande City to begin the league. I'm sure you'll do great. You always do, happily grinning at him, with her arms behind her back. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, hey, there they are now. Hey Brock, look who I found wandering around. Quote. Hey, long time, no see. As Brock ran up to her, giving her a hug. Hey Brock, I need to do a little laundry, is that okay? What happened to your clothes Ash? Hey, that would be my fault. Misty said with a hand on the back of her head, sweat dropping. Brock looked at her puzzled and saw what was going on. Okay Ash. Dinner will be ready when you're done. Thanks Brock. He walked away into the tent. Brock went back to his food, as he continued to keep cooking the soup, and decided to ask Misty a question. Hey Misty. Yeah, what is it Brock? What do you think of Ash? What do I think of Ash? I think he's a great person. Sometimes a little stubborn, childish, and dumbfounded, but I think Ash is really good friend. Why? She said suspiciously, getting a feeling of what was going on. Oh, nothing. Hey Misty, could you go collect some wood? This fire looks like it's going to go out soon. Ash forgot to grab some wood on his way back. Quote, okay Brock, she said as she ran off back into the forest to collect some wood. Back in the tent, an argument was going on. I didn't mean to walk in like that. Ash trying to apologize, sweat dropping. You should ask before you come in. May screamed, her eyes blazing like fire. Oh yeah, well, at least I ain't the one that starts the arguments, trying to strike back with another one of his comments. So, Ash, you think I start the arguments? You always seem to try and put me down, making it look like I can't win my badges. Well, now I'm finally on my way to the league. He yelled furiously, as he raised his fists up to her. HMPH. Why don't you go and complain to your girlfriend? Misty is not my girlfriend. Blushing, he felt intimidated, as he quieted down and ran out of the tent, tripping over a rock and landing right into Brock. Ow. What's going on Ash? Brock asked, as rubbed his head, getting out from under Ash. Oh, sorry Brock. Me and May were just arguing about something, as he scratched his head, sweat dropping. It's okay Ash. At least the food didn't get ruined, he said, laughing a bit, returning to his cooking. Ash soon returned to his thoughts about what May had been saying. HMPH. Why don't you go and complain to your girlfriend? It's not true, he thought. Maybe I do feel that way about her. But does she? As he walked, he didn't realize he was walking into the forest. Are you sure you'll be okay without me Ash? Makes it easier to carry. Ash. Ash quickly snapped back into reality, as he saw who was looking at him. Ash, are you okay? You say, to be out of it. Misty looked at him concerned, her hands on her waist. Huh, what? Oh, yeah I'm fine. Guess I just kinda daydreamed for second, he said, smiling. Okay then. Well, I got some wood. For the fire, pointing to the wood behind her, grinning. Oh, I forgot to get the wood. Don't worry Ash, I got some wood. Brock understood. I was thinking maybe we could have a little get together, since I'm here. Misty said excitedly, looking at Ash with a big grin, her hands clapped together. That sounds great Misty. You have to go back to the gym soon. After the Hoenn League, my sisters are still trying to train and become better gym leaders. They forced me to come and visit, so I didn't complain. Well, that's great Misty. Ash said, returning to more thoughts. So she's going to leave again. Sigh. Ash. Huh. Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's go get things set up for the party, turning around, walking off slowly. Alright. Race ya. As she ran past him sticking her tongue out at him. Ash smiled, as he ran after her, trying to beat her before she got there. Back with Brock. Well, the food seems to be ready, Brock smiled, getting out the bowls and spoons. Oh boy, I've waited for this all day, Max said, running over to Brock. Drooling, May walked out of the tent, her arms folded, with an angry look on her face. So lunch is ready. I guess that's one thing that's gone right today, she said grabbing a bowl. Closing her eyes as she ate it angrily. Brock looked at her for a second as he grabbed a bowl for Max and poured some soup into it. Max, do you hear that? Brock asked, looking towards the bushes. May opened her eyes, and looked towards the bushes, and ran behind Max with her eyes closed. What if it's a monster? It might try to eat us. If it's a monster, then it will be too scared to attack you. What's that supposed to mean? May yelled, as she punched her brother in the arm. Yeah, Misty yelled, as she ran out from the bushes, skidding to a halt. Ash followed soon after, as he darted out and landed on his chest, skidding to Misty's feet. Oh, it is a monster, May said, going back to her angry look, and picked up her bowl, as she went into the tent. Ash picked his head up. with a big clob of dirt on his face, to see Misty's feet. He looked up at her face as Misty stuck out her tongue, pulling one of her eyes down. "I beat you. Better luck next time," Misty said, smiling, and saw the food. "Hey, food's ready." Ash, running over to sit on a rock. "Really?" Ash quickly got up, wiping the dirt off his face, and grabbed a bowl of soup. Typical Ash, Misty thought. "I'm glad to be back here, with all my friends. Although, where's that one girl, May?" A half-hour passed, as Ash scarfed down most of the pot. As he tried to ask for fifths, Brock said that he ate all of it. They all sat down, and started talking together as the topic of getting the party set up came up. Me and Ash thought that maybe, we should have a party, to celebrate his future victory in the Hoenn League. "And my coming," Misty said with a big grin. "Oh yeah, Brock, can we try to get to Evergrande City today?" Ash asked Brock excitedly, as he told himself that today would be the day he told Misty his feelings. Let me check." Brock pulled out a traveling guide, looking for the boat times. "There's a boat that leaves 10 minutes from now. Then, we gotta hurry. Come on, let's put the tent away. And get going," Ash commanded, as he stood up, and went over and started disassembling the tent. "Hey, I'm in here," May came out, her fists on her waist. "Sorry May, but the boat to Evergrande City leaves in 10 minutes. We gotta hurry if we're gonna make it," he said as he continued to put away the tent. "Okay, I'll go help Brock put away the dishes and pot," May pointed towards Brock, as she walked away. They finished in 5 minutes and found Thames leaves darting towards the boat to Evergrande. "Wait for us," Ash yelled towards the boat. Max, not being too fit, Hoenn himself tripping over a rock and ran into the rest of the group as they started to all roll towards the boat. The boat is beginning to leave, as they all roll off the edge of a hill, and right onto the deck of the boat. "Ow," Ash moans, as he looks around for everybody. "Is everyone okay?" As everybody slowly gets up, they nod, and look around. "Well, we might as well go speak with the captai. And to tell him about our bumpy landing," Brock said, as he headed towards the captain's quarters. "Well, I guess we just wait until we land at Evergrande City now, huh Ash?" As towards Brock, to see what her room would look like. "Yep," as Ash started following Misty. Max started walking with them, as May stayed behind, now lost in her own thoughts. "Should I tell him? He doesn't seem to feel the same way towards me as I do him. I'll bet he likes that Misty girl instead of me. No, that's it. I'm going to tell him at the party. He'll never expect it coming." May smiled, as she looked out to sea, and tied on her bandana. "This was the first fanfic I worked on when I started getting to work on fanfic writing. I have corrected many errors and mistakes since the first time I wrote it. However, this story is incomplete. However, also, it will not stay that way. I am on chapter 7, and I have every intention of finishing this fic, even if it kills me. Good day. I don't own Pokemon either. Cries a. Gained, but I do own a few made-up characters in this story. Enjoy. To melt the heart of a champion." Chapter 3 Unwanted Chores. Ash, Brock, Misty, and Max all walked into the captain's quarters. There we read pictures of the captain hanging on the walls, showing pictures of him with his kids and wife. The captain was standing in front of the window. He turned around and greeted them with a warm smile. "Hello kids." The captain had a gray mustache, and was wearing a white captain's uniform. He took his captain's hat off as he exposed his baldness and sat in his red chair. "I understand that you came aboard without a ticket," he said. Suddenly turning serious. Yes. But how did you know?" Ash asked, nervously. "One of the mates on the deck saw you land and reported to me. I just assumed the IOUS that none of you had a ticket to come aboard." "Yes, we're sorry about that. But can we get a ticket now? We don't carry the tickets on board, son." "Oh, but, since you're here, I think we can set TLE a way to pay off your debts," he said, smiling again, as he got up from his chair and put his hat back on. How's that? I think these will be suitable for you five. Wasn't there a fifth person on board?" he asked, grabbing a metal bucket in his right and a mop in the other. "Yeah, she's outside on deck," Brock answered for Ash. "Well, she can help you too," he said, chuckling and handing bucket and mop to Ash as he went to grab another. You can start by filling it up with some water and soap. Then start mopping the deck. The red-haired one can help you mop, the short one can count the money. And the other two can help the men in the boiler room. After that's done, come back to me, he said, turning his back to them. As he walked out onto the deck, closing the door behind him. "Ah, now we gotta mop," Ash moaned, his head down. "Look on the bright side. Quit complaining, Ash. We're on the boat, right?" Misty said, her arms folded. "Guess you're right," he said, as he sighed. Brock and Max headed out onto the deck to look for May, as Ash and Misty grabbed their mops and buckets and started getting to work. "What? The boiler room? They can't just stick a pretty girl in a boiler room like that," May said angrily. And she folded her arms and looked away from Max and Brock. "It's not that bad, May. Max, you don't know what that does to a girl's looks," she yelled furiously, her arms raised high. "Doubt it can do much more than you already have." "What was that?" She clenched her fist tightly, as she pulled out what seemed to be a mallet the size of the ship. "Calm down, May." Brock grabbed her tightly, trying to take the hammer away. "Don't tell me to be calm. May, if you keep this up, they could kick us off the boat," Brock said, trying to talk sense into the infuriated May. "Fine then," she yelled, setting the mallet down, breathing heavily. "I'll be in the boiler room." She walked off with her eyes closed, into the boiler room. Brock and Max looked at each other and chuckled. As Brock walked down to the boiler room himself, and Max walked off to the captain to ask him directions to the room he'd be working in, the captain was standing at the edge of the ship, watching the sea and listening to the mopping that Ash and Misty were doing. He turned around to see Max walking up to him, and he raised an eyebrow to the young boy as he came closer. Captain, where do I need to go?" Max asked, twiddling his thumbs nervously. "Okay, head down to the door to my quarters. Go straight to the end of the hall, take a left, and it will be the fourth door on your right." "Thanks a lot. I'll head down there now, sir," Max saluted, as the captain saluted back, smiling, and Max walked away past Ash and Misty. The captain looked at his watch and saw that Ash and Misty still had a lot to do. He looked at the two and saw that it was his lunch break. "You two can take a break when I get back, all right?" "Thanks, Captain." Ash started to mop harder and faster, trying to speed things up so that he wouldn't be stuck here all day. The captain walked past the two, as Ash and Misty kept mopping. "I should be training, not mopping decks. How am I ever going to get any training in now?" Misty stopped mopping for a second and looked at Ash in a concerned manner. "Don't worry, Ash. I'm sure you'll define. You did good in the Silver Conference, Orange League, as well as the Indigo League. So I'm sure you'll define in this one too," she said, giving a happy grin. "Well, I'm gonna shoot for the top. I won't settle for anything but the best," he said, giving a determined smile towards Misty as he stopped his mopping. Misty always loved that about him. His determination. It was usually what always kept him going. That, and his smile. How he always kept training, and always kept going for the top. Misty started to continue her mopping as she started mopping slowly away from farther and farther. 10 minutes later, they finished and they both took a look at it proudly. Ash put his mop down, next to the rail. And he looked over at Misty do the same at the other side of the deck. "Be careful. It's still a little wet," Ash said towards Misty. But she couldn't hear him too well, being on the other side of the deck. Phew, Misty wiped the sweat off of her forehead with the top of her right hand, as she took the hair band out of her hair, letting her hair down. She shook her head around, trying to get some of the sweat out. She clenched her hands into fists and set them on her waist, looking at the mopping job she had done. She smiled and started walking towards Ash. As she was almost there, her right foot slipped and she fell face forward. She fell right into Ash's arms and he gripped onto her tightly, stopping her from dropping. She had her eyes closed. She opened her left eye, and slowly opened her right eye, as she looked up into Ash's eyes. There was a pause for a few seconds, and she quickly got up, blushing a deep red, turning around and covering her face. Ash also blushed a deep red. As he sat there, his heart beating quickly. Thanks Ash, she said, not turning around. Sure, no problem Misty. I said the floor was slippery. I guess I didn't hear you, she couldn't stop blushing. And then she felt his hand on her shoulder. Well, we should probably go look for Brock, Max, and May. Yeah, alright Ash. She quickly got rid of her blushing and Dee turned around and smiled warmly at him. Unknown to Ash and Misty, things were starting to get a little out of hand. I'm not a man, May was screaming at one of the workers. She had her bandana taken off and was wearing one of the workers' uniforms which were dirty, smelled horrible, and were overalls with greens pants and a slightly blackened, white t-shirt. Then, what are you doing down here? I'm doing this because we don't have a ticket. May screamed louder at the worker. You sure don't look like a woman that had done it. She couldn't take it anymore. Huh, May, don't. What are you doing? Brock was scared, as he started running away at the sight of what she was about to do. Max was almost done counting the money, when suddenly the boat rocked off to the left, knocking all his money to the ground. Whoa. As the boat rocked, it knocked Misty off balance and she was the one who hit the railing. OWWWW. Ash put a hand on his back, with a look of defeat on his face. Misty was sitting towards Ash. And she got up quickly and started blushing again. She sweat dropped, putting her left hand on the back of her head and gave a hand to Ash. Ash took her hand and she pulled him up. Captain came running out of the cafeteria, yelling at some of the sailors, asked them what happened. The sailors were looking around quickly and started panicking from possible rocks or coral from underneath the boat. As they started inspecting things, they found that nothing was wrong and the boat was still moving. The captain looked around and calmed down. Huh, I wonder what that was. Brock was hiding behind a wall, looking at May, who he thought had killed one of the workers. But luckily, she had only knocked him unconscious. She looked at them angrily, holding her mallet behind her, and gave an evil smile to the rest of the workers. The workers flinched and started groveling at her feet. Now that's more like it. At least you know how to treat a lady, she smiled evilly as she closed her eyes. Brock shook his head and sighed. Ash and Misty walked to the room Max was working in and saw him picking up all the money. Want some help with that? Ash asked his small friend. Yes, please. Ash and Misty got down on the floor and started helping Max pick the money, and they could tell this might take a while. The captain headed down to the boiler room to see how the men were doing and to give May and Brock a break. As he headed down there, he saw that the room was remarkably cleaner, and the men were working a lot harder. Wow, this is looking great. How did you get them to work so hard? The captain asked May. Oh, you know, just a little motivation, she said as she smiled happily at the captain and turned around to give the workers another evil smile, and she clenched her right fist tightly at them. Brock's sweat dropped. Ah, well, it's time for your break. I believe you've been working quite hard. Come on down and I'll get you all something to eat. Go gather your other friends. Brock and May nodded, and replied with an, okay, as they walked up the stairs. Ash, Misty, and Max were almost done picking up the money, and they were quiet the whole time. There was still one St. dollar bill left on the ground and Ash and Misty both tried to grab it and Misty's hand landed on Ash's. She was quiet for a moment, as Misty started sweating, until Max snapped them back into reality. Come on. Oh, right. Ash quickly took the dollar out from under Misty's hand and handed it to Max, who smiled. Brock and May came in, and they noticed Brock had a weird look on his face. You okay, Brock? Ash asked his friend. Yeah, I'm fine. It's time for our break, guys, he smiled, and then the other three got up on their feet, and followed Brock back to the cafeteria. At the cafeteria, there was more food than Ash could ever believe. And when it came to Ash and food, that was quite surprising. Look at all this food. Ash's voice and the call of food woke up his little yellow pal, Pikachu, who instantly popped out of Ash's green backpack and replied with a "Pika." Ash immediately ran up to the food, grabbing a tray and throwing all kinds of food onto the tray. Ash, we're on a limit, ya know. We can't just buy as much food as you want. Misty yelled at him, her hands on her waist. But it was too late. When Ash turned around, he had a donut dot in my mouth. What's that, Misty? Misty sighed and started grabbing some food for herself, and she was followed by Max, Brock, and then May, who wasn't putting much food onto her tray. They all grabbed their food, and started looking around for a table. But whether or not they were going to find one in time before Ash finished his food was starting to wander around in their minds. Pikachu pointed out to a table that was sitting next to the captain. Pika, They walked over to the table, ignoring Ash's complete onslaught of eating. It was a big, round table, with 6 chairs surrounding the table. Ash sat down and took Pikachu out of his backpack and put him onto the chair next to him. Misty walked up to Ash, but May cut right in front of her and sat in the chair to the right of Ash. Geez, what's her problem? Misty thought, moving to the left of Ash, passing Pikachu up. Pikachu tugged on Misty's shorts and got up off the chair to let Misty sit in it. Thanks, Pikachu. Misty smiled and rubbed Pikachu's head as Pikachu jumped out of the chair and sat on the table, enjoying its Pokémon food that Brock had prepared for him. Chaw, Pikachu said happily as Misty rubbed its head. Max and Brock sat in 2 of the other chairs, Max to the right of Brock. May eyed Misty, raising an eyebrow to her, and Misty saw this and looked towards May, when she quickly turned around and looked at Brock, starting a conversation with him. The captain walked up to the 5 trainers and greeted them with a proud, big smile. The ship will be docking in within the hour. You 5 should ready your things soon, and Max, don't worry about the money ordeal. It's all been taken care of. I understand that the rocking of the ship caused the money to fall to the ground. I've had one of my other sailors take care of it, so don't worry about it. Thank you, sir, as Max saluted. The captain did the same, and walked away. 20 minutes passed and Pikachu looked like a beached Wailord, as well as his master, Ash, who had a huge smile on his face, indicating that he was quite happy about the food he ate. That was great, he said, a toothpick in his mouth. Sure was, Brock said as well. Well, I guess we should go up to the deck to wait for the ship to dock in now, huh? Misty asked Ash. Yeah, let's go. I want to see another view of the ocean, Ash said, getting up and handing his arm to Pikachu, who climbed up it and onto his head, as this was Pikachu's usual spot of hanging out. They all headed up to the deck and looked out to the ocean, which they all commented was beautiful. They watched as the ship slowly began to dock in, as Ash wore a confident smile, and raising his right arm into a fist, and said, "Are you ready, Pikachu? 'Cause this time, we're going for the top." As Pikachu gave a big Pika, and the group smiled at Ash. This was the first fanfic I worked on when I started getting to work on fanfic writing. I have corrected many errors and mistakes since the first time I wrote it. However, this story is incomplete. However, also, it will not stay that way. I am on chapter 7, and I have every intention of finishing this fic, even if it kills me. Good day. I don't own Pokémon either. Cries again, but I do own a few made-up characters in this story. Enjoy. To melt the heart of a champion. Chapter 4 Secrets Revealed. The ship seemed to have been picking up speed, as Ash, Brock, Misty, May, and Max sat on the boat, waiting for it dock in. They all smiled and watched the ship pick up more speed, but then this began to worry Misty as the ship was getting very close to docking in now. Misty began to back up slowly with a look of worry on her face, and the others quickly caught on as the ship was now approaching the dock. They all ran away from the railing as the ship's captain ran out on deck. Flygon, go. The captain release. A Pokémon that seemed to resemble a giant bug, almost like a dragonfly. Misty started quivering, and ran behind Brock, as they watched the Flygon jump into action. The Flygon quickly flew to the FR onto the ship and held its arms out against the ship's front, beginning to slow it to a stop, but this didn't seem to be working quickly enough as Ash decided he would help out too. Cradont, I choose you. Ash threw the red and white colored Pokéball, and a giant Pokémon, resembling a lobster, jumped into the water and quickly dashed towards the front of the ship. The Cradont grabbed the ship quickly, and to Misty's surprise, as well as the captain's, this Cradont was remarkably powerful. As the ship began to quickly lose speed, the ship halted to a stop and everyone let out a big phew. Flygon, return, the captain yelled, as he held out HNG the Flygon to him. You too, Cradont. And Ash held out his Pokéball as well, returning his own Pokémon to its ball. Sorry to go like this, but I need to see why the ship wouldn't stop, the captain said, as he ran quickly towards the quarters, ignoring everyone, and went down the stairs to the boiler room. Phew, that was a close one, huh? Brock said, seeming very relieved, as he pried off Misty's arms from around his neck. Wow, your Cradont sure has gotten strong, May complimented Ash, smiling at him. Well, at least the ship stopped. So now we get off and get our party settled, Brock said suggestively, raising an eyebrow to Ash, who looked at him confused. They all got off the ship to see the captain rushing off past them into Evergrande City. He seemed to be in a rush, but they just ignored it, walking into Evergrande to look for a good party shop. Misty spotted one that was as big as 3 5-story buildings stacked on top of each other. They all looked at it in amazement, as they all walked in excitedly. Misty and May immediately started looking around for things to show Ash, Brock, and Max, making suggestions. Towards them becoming more and more excited. May and Misty both picked out a whole lot of confetti which was all in blues and pinks. Ash and Pikachu picked out some lightning-shaped and yellow-colored banners with a red tint to it. Brock picked out some rainbow-colored balloons, and Max just watched as he went through his Pokénav, planning where to go when the league started. "Okay, we're set," Brock said excitedly, looking towards Ash to see if he had finished what he was doing. "I got what I need," Ash replied happily, as he and Pikachu went up to Brock and Max, as they couldn't find May and Misty anywhere. As they were around looking for all kinds of party supplies, Misty had just popped out of nowhere with a happy grin on her face, as she showed Ash, Brock, Pikachu, and Max the items she was getting for the party. Then it just dawned on Ash. "Where are we going to hold the party?" "Where else? The same kind of place we always end up in our travels," Misty replied looking at him in a way that said she thought he was being stupid. "A forest?" Ash asked. "Of course, where else?" Misty said happily, as she snatched Ash and Brock's items and put them up to the cashier who rung them up. "Hold on Misty. May's still not back yet," Ash said, waiting for her to appear any second now. Sure enough, May appeared, also with many trinkets in her hands, as she ran right past Ash, Brock, and Max. And up to Misty and the cash register. "I don't understand why girls get so worked up over those things," Ash said curiously, putting his hands in his pockets. "Oh, do you?" Brock said teasingly. "Huh, what's that supposed to mean?" Ash said, shocked. "Nothing Ash, don't sweat over it," Brock said reassuringly. "Right, hey Max, how does the Pokémon League work in Hoenn? Does it work the same way all the other tournaments work? Like in Johto and Kanto?" Ash asked, looking over his shoulder and at his Pokénav. "Well, since you asked," Max hesitated. "It works the same way for the most part. Although, they have a little twist to keep trainers interested. Apparently, it's possible to become Pokémon Master of Hoenn, if you roll the dice right," Max said, proudly, adjusting his glasses. "Really? How Max? How?" Ash said very excitedly, thinking that maybe he could finally fulfill his dream here once and for all. "Well, this is how it works," Max started, taking a deep breath. "There are of course, the elimination rounds, which will knock any number of trainers competing in the tournament to be reduced to a number of 16. Those 16 trainers will be put into a bracket, and they will face a trainer randomized by a computer to determine who they will face in their first round. This will continue until the victor finally arises. But," Max started again, "the trainer does have a choice, once he or she wins the tournament. The winner can either keep their title and trophy, or wager it against one more competition," Max ended, drawing another deep breath until Ash stopped him. "What's this choice they have to make?" Ash asked wearily. "Well, if you do decide to risk your title and trophy, you will be pitted up against the Elite Four of the Hoenn region. You cannot lose to any of them. There's 4 of them, and if you beat all 4 of them without losing, then you will become Pokémon Master of Hoenn," Max ended, expecting an excited voice to come from Ash, but Max was disappointed when Ash was quiet. Ash walked towards Misty and May and asked if they were done yet. They nodded happily and they all walked out the door and out into the streets again. "So, into the forest then?" Misty asked, when she turned around and smiled at them with her arms behind her. "All right then," Ash said, a normal look on his face as he tried to look for a good spot to hold the party. "How about over there?" Max asked, pointing at a small clearing, surrounded thickly by trees. "That looks good," Misty said excitedly as she ran over into the clearing. May looked towards the clearing, smiling blankly. As she watched, she started to daydream and go into her own little personal thoughts. "Me and Ash, that'd be great," she whispered to herself, as she closed her eyes, smiling, and pointing her head up towards the sky. She started to imagine talking to Ash about their feelings. "You know May, I'm not entirely sure what I would have done if you weren't with me to help, protect, and guide me. You really are a good friend. But I really like you a lot. Come on, let's do it. Huh, May said, snapping back into reality. She looked at her brother, sweat dropping. Come on, I said let's do it. Max said, pointing at Ash, Brock, and Misty putting up the decorations for the party. Oh, sorry Max, I guess I kinda zoned out for a minute. Ha, she said, scratching the back of her head nervously. Sigh well, come on, we need your help May, Max said strictly, crossing his arms. Okay, she said, then started walking over to them and grabbed some confetti. After a few hours of setting up, the gang all decided to split up and take a break. Ash went down to the Pokémon Center to see if there was any info useful to use in the league. Brock took a trip down to the nearest mall to get more supplies for their travels. Misty, unknown to everyone else, went down to a fashion and clothes store. There, she bought a blue and pink kimono, with silver straps around the waist, giving it a very graceful look. May took a walk to daydream and get away from her little brother. Max stayed at the party set up to check and make sure that no problems would occur during the party. Everything seemed to be in order. So he took off to go look for the rest of the gang, as the sun was now setting. Max ran into Brock, who was also walking down the road towards Max. Hey Brock, Max yelled, waving his right arm around. Huh, oh, hey Max, Brock walked a little quicker until they were both face to face. Can we go look for everyone else now? Max asked, his hands clamped together. Sure, Brock turned around and started walking back into town to go look for possible places that everyone else would be at. Max followed. That will 930 please, the clerk told Misty, as Misty went into her bag and handed her 1,000 dollars. Here is $70 in change, thank you and have a nice day, the clerk said, giving her the money. You too, Misty took the white, plastic bag containing the kimono and walked out the door. Misty walked outside, into the cold weather, when she saw Max and Brock walking up the road towards her. Hey Brock, hey Max, Misty yelled, running up to them, waving at them. Hey Misty, we're looking for Ash and May. Do you know where they might be? Brock asked her, holding a bag of items in a brown paper bag. Well, no, but you know Ash, maybe he's at the Evergrande League, or the Pokémon Center. Misty said, feeling like she wasn't being much help. Back at the Pokémon Center, Ash was asking around to see if there were any secrets or hints he could get about the league, to see if anything could help. He collapsed onto the green couch, resting his arms up on the back of the couch. Pikachu jumped down into a nap next to Ash's left leg. Misty, Ash thought to high. Mself as memories of their parting came to him. Are you sure you'll be okay without me Ash? Makes it easier to carry. He saw this memory the most clearest of all. He sat quietly on the sofa, petting Pikachu's ear, as he went into deeper thought about the handkerchief. Misty. Ash took off his backpack and started scavenging around, looking for the pink and yellow cloth. Ash smiled as he pulled out the handkerchief and gripped it tightly with his right hand. His eyes became slightly watery, as he wiped his eyes with his right arm, putting the cloth back into his backpack. Then it came to him. Ash felt stronger feeling for her than just being her best friend. I gotta tell her. I'll tell her tonight. Ash got up, smiling determinedly, and nudged Pikachu slightly, awakening his little yellow pal. Caw. Pikachu shaked his head quickly and jumped onto Ash's shoulder. Let's go look for everybody Pikachu, Ash told his little pal, scratching it on his head and walking out the doors. May was walking around almost like a zombie. When she was walking towards Brock, Max, and Misty. Hey May, Brock said, smiling towards May. But May seemed unaffected by his words. May was once again lost in her thoughts. But she was also walking right towards Brock, Max, and Misty. May kept getting closer and closer. May, Max asked in a confused way, tilting his glasses. May got closer then suddenly tripped over a rock, falling right into Brock and Misty, but Max dodged in time, as he saw this thing coming, being her brother. May, you shouldn't be daydreaming like that. Max yelled, scolding his sister in a very you should know better than that voice. Max then saw Ash walking towards them. Oh well, look who's coming up here. Max pointed at Ash and May as Misty quickly got up and smiled at him happily. With grins on their faces. May quickly rushed over to where Ash was and dragged him by the arm. Come on, we gotta start the party now. It's a perfect time, the night stars and sky make it perfect. May yelled excitedly, dragging Ash off. Brock and Max looked at them confused and sweat dropped. Misty sat with a blank face for a moment, then looked towards May and put on an angry look, showing her teeth on the right side of her mouth. She had caught on what May was doing now. Back at the spot they picked out for their party, Ash and May were already there, making some last touches. Brock, Max, and Misty came in. Misty still had that angry look on her face. Brock pulled out a radio, TV, and started playing music. Misty went into a different part of the forest to change into her kimono. Ash and Brock were making some food while Max and May danced to a beat on the radio. Misty came back after a few minutes and had a pink fan in her hand. Misty had also let down her hair and put on a tiny tint perfume, making her quite elegant. Ash stared in amazement and Misty blushed, scratching her chin nervously and hiding her face behind her fan. May raised an eyebrow and took off her bandana, and frizzled her hair up a bit. Brock was now getting very suspicious of May and grew angry at this. Brock decided he needed to talk to May alone. Crash! Brock took out a CD and snapped it in half. He quickly dropped the pieces on the grass and scattered them about. He quickly got up and tried to look a little klutzy. May, could you come help me with this? Brock asked, getting down on the grass, picking some of the shards up. Why do I have to help? Get Max to do it, she replied pathetically. Just go do it. It will help you lose some weight too. Max quickly covered his in over what he just said. Brock quickly took advantage of this and ran over to her. What? May yelled, readying her right fist. May, don't. Brock quickly grabbed her around the waist and dragged her into the forest where he could talk to her in private. Wait till I get my hands on that short little punk. May yelled as she went into the forest. Shish. Brock put his right hand over her mouth, quieting her up. Brock could hear a quiet, slow dance song coming on. Oh, this is perfect. May began to run, but was quickly grabbed on her right wrist by Brock, who had a very serious look on his face. May, I gotta talk to you about something. Back at the party, Max, Ash, and Misty were all looking at Max's new book, The 386 Pokémon and All Their Natural Attacks by Professor Samuel Oak. Misty heard one of her favorite songs come on and worked up some courage. Well guys, I'm gonna go see what happened to May, Max said, chuckling and folding his arms parent-like. Okay, we'll see y'all later, Ash said, waving to Max as he went into the forest. Pikachu also nodded and took off with Max into the forest to look for May too. But Pikachu knew what was really going on. Hey Ash, Misty said, nervously twiddling her thumbs. She set her fan down on a rock and looked at Ash. Ash stopped her from talking with his right index finger and put it on her lips. May I have this dance? Ash said gentlemanly, bowing to her with his left arm behind his back. Misty was very surprised that Ash did this. Ash wasn't the kind of person to do this sort of thing. But she didn't argue. She happily put out her left hand, blushing furiously. As Ash took it, standing upright, they held each other's hands as they danced a slow dance, twirling around. Ash took off his hat and threw it down next to the radio that Brock was working around and let go of Misty's hands and put them around her waist instead. She blushed more than ever before and felt her heart pounding madly, as she put her arms around Ash's neck, smiling peacefully. Time seemed to go very slowly and this is exactly how both of them wanted it as. They smiled the whole time, gazing into each other's eyes, then they began to slow their dance down drastically, almost to where they weren't moving. Misty removed her arms from around Ash's neck and set her hands on Ash's chest, as well as her head. Ash, Misty said very quietly. Yeah Misty, Ash replied, looking down at her, smiling with his eyes half open. What do you think of us? Misty asked, hoping to get a very responsible answer from him. I like the position we're in. I wouldn't change it for anything. You're the most important person to me. Ash then choked on his words, realizing what he had just said. Misty opened her eyes widely, and looked up Ash. Real, why? Misty said, her eyes watering up, and she starting smiling, and looked into Ash's eyes. He looked at her and wiped her tears away and smiled back at her. Time seemed to have stopped suddenly. as they found each other's faces slowly moving closer and closer, until their lips touched. Misty and Ash embraced themselves into a very tight hug, feeling the taste their lips together for the first time. Misty's dream had finally come true and at no sacrifice or loss. Back with May and Brock, May was feeling very anxious and very insulted, as well as intruded from the words Brock was saying towards her. "I don't care. I'm going over there to tell him now." May ran away from Brock and Max, who just joined Brock a few minutes after leaving Ash and Misty, and ran towards the party. She ran as quickly as she could until she could see the lights of the party coming into view. She stopped suddenly and hid behind a bush, as she saw what Ash and Misty were doing. They looked happy, both glad to have each other. May looked at this as her heart suddenly stopped and she sat down Indian style with a look of despair on her face, and she wiped away a small tear. "I guess he does like her. I should have seen it sooner. How could I go and get overly excited about that?" She talked to herself and she snuck a peek through the bush to see them again. For some reason it was just too painful to watch for her. "Well, he's happy and I'm glad that he is. If that's what he wants, then he can have it. The person for me is out there somewhere." She sighed and turned her back on them, and then Brock called, as he and Max ran over to where May was. "Shish," May said quickly and hushed them both up with her hands. "Look." May sat down on her knees, and Brock and Max did the same, and they peered out of the bush and looked at them. Brock's face turned to a surprised look and Max had a look of disgust on his face. "Gross," Max yelled, gritting his teeth and taking his head out of the bush. "Grr." May grew furious and whacked her brother across the head with her right fist. "How dare you? This is love, you idiot. Now be quiet." May looked at him now with a very serious look that meant to look like a "if you do anything wrong I'll hurt you" kind of look. She turned back around and whispered to Brock, "Hey Brock, I think we should leave them alone now, so they can be in private, okay?" Brock nodded and they both took their heads out of the bush and turned around and began a small whisper about the Hoenn League starting tomorrow. Ash and Misty parted from their kiss and Misty threw her arms around Ash and rested her head on his right shoulder, and Ash hugged her, putting his right hand on the back of her head. "Oh Ash, I love you so much. Thank you for always being there," Misty said, tightening her hug. Ash ran his fingers through her hair, smelling the elegant perfume, and gave a laugh to himself as he had once disliked perfume before. "I love you too. And I'm glad to have always been there for you. Thanks for your help, Mist." Ash kissed her forehead and the song came to an end. Ash and Misty broke away from their loving hug and Ash grabbed his hat. Misty went over to her red bag and took out her old clothes that she wore in the Kanto and Johto regions when she was traveling with Ash and Brock. She smiled and started walking towards Brock, Max, and May, who started panicking. Brock and May quickly jumped out and ran behind another big bush and forced Max into, and Misty just barely missed them as they watched her walk deeper into the forest carrying her clothes. "Phew, that was close," May exclaimed, now walking back over to Ash. Brock and Max followed, with sighs of relief, and walked up to Ash. "Hey Ash, so, you ready to get some sleep for your battle tomorrow?" Brock asked, seeing that it was already 9:12 p.m. "You'll wanna get up extra early if you wanna catch your battles." "Yeah, that's true." Ash took off his blue vest and shoes and set out his new sleeping bag. It had yellow bolts of electricity with Pikachus all over it. Pikachu ran up to Ash smiling with love in its eyes. "Pika Pika, Pikachu. Hi Pika, Choo Choo. Pikachu." Pikachu said to Ash, as Shish was the only one who knew was Pikachu was saying exactly. Ash froze and stared at Pikachu. "They did." Pikachu nodded happily and jumped up to Ash's shoulder and gave him a pat on the back. "Hi Pichu ka Kachu Pika." "That's true. It couldn't be avoided." "Oh well, I guess I'll break the news to them tomorrow then, huh?" "Ka." Pikachu nodded, closing his eyes. Ash smiled and Misty returned, seeing that everyone had set out their sleeping bags. Misty kept her hair undone and set out her usual sleeping bag with bubbles all over it, surrounded by a red background. She smiled and got into her sleeping bag. She had set her sleeping bag right next to Ash's, which didn't surprise anyone at the least. In more than one way. Ash got in and Brock blew out the lanterns, illuminating the area. "Hey Brock," Ash asked, sitting up in his bag. "What about getting rid of all this stuff we set up in this forest?" That's why we're waking up at 5 a.m. Ash, Brock replied, laughing. What? Then I got to get to sleep now. Ash quickly fell right back into his sleeping bag and saw he was facing Misty. Misty smiled at him, and mouthed a kiss to him, which caused Ash to blush a deep red. Everyone jumped into their sleeping bags and went to sleep. I love you, Ash. I love you too, Mist. This was the first fanfic I worked on when I started getting to work on fanfic writing. I have corrected many errors and mistakes since the first time I wrote it. However, this story is incomplete. However, also, it will not stay that way. I am on chapter 7, and I have every intention of finishing this fic, even if it kills me. Good day. I don't own Pokémon either. Cries again, but I do own a few made-up characters in this story. Enjoy. To melt the heart of a champion. Chapter 5 Dreams and Bad Luck. Misty, like, wah. K up or you're gonna like sleep the whole day. A young girl was yelling at Misty. She had long, shiny blonde hair, and a small white flower in her hair. She was wearing a red t-shirt with a long pin. K skirt and bracelet of beads on her right wrist. Huh, where's Ash? Misty slowly got up from her bed but discovered she wasn't in the place she recalled. Ash, like, what are you talking about, Misty? Ash isn't here. Are you okay, Misty? The girl asked her younger sister, confused and somewhat amused. Nothing. It's nothing, don't worry about it, Daisy. I must have been dreaming. Misty looked sad and tied her hair into her usual ponytail and bowed her head down sadly. Dreaming about your boyfriend? Daisy asked, teasing her little sister. Huh, he's not my boyfriend. We're just friends. Misty suddenly became very defensive, and started saying all kinds of things to try and convince her sister otherwise. Sure, okay. If that's what you say, then I guess it must be true. But then, I guess you don't want this letter then, huh? Daisy held up a blue envelope in front of her own face, so as Misty could only see the back. Is that a letter to me? Misty asked, readying herself to practically tackle Daisy. Well, like, yeah. Of course it is, Misty. Daisy was waving it around like a fan in front of her face, and Misty could just make out what 2 words on the front of the envelope said. Ash Ketchum. Give me that letter now. Misty stood on her feet now, readying herself to hit Daisy. Nah, I'm fine with keeping your letter. But like, I'll give it to you easily under one condition, Daisy said. Now with a friendly smile on her face. Misty put down her fists but still kept her angry face on. And what's that? Misty asked, desperate for the letter. You admit to me that you like Ash, Deus. Why said happily with an even bigger smile on her face now. I don't. Misty didn't want to say she didn't like Ash, but right now she didn't see much of a choice right now. Alright, Misty, whatever. You don't have to like. Get all angry and pouty over it. Daisy handed the letter to Misty, but held onto as Misty grabbed it. But if you're not going to tell me, at least tell Ash, and Daisy let go of the envelope, letting Misty take it away. But I don't. Misty mumbled to herself as she watched Daisy walk out of her room, closing the door behind her. Oh Ash, I wish that would have actually happened. HMPH. Misty walked over to her desk, which was made of nice quality oak wood with a beautiful shine to it. There were little dolls of Pokémon at the top of her desk as well. They included water Pokémon such as Staryu, Horsey, Lapras, Corsola, and a Vaporeon, which was one of Misty's most favored water types. Misty sat down on her red chair, and opened up the letter. She read off the words as she saw them. Dear Misty, hope you're doing great. I hear that gym work is hard. But don't worry. I'm sure if you just do your best, you'll pull through just fine, Misty. How are your sisters? As soon as I wrote that, Brock went crazy again over Daisy, Lily, and Violet. I entered into the Hoenn League and I guess they start up the first round in 2 more days. I already got through the preliminaries. They didn't seem to be so hard. It's a good thing Max is here though, because he told me how the league stuff works. Hope you'll watch me on TV. I wish you could come, anyways. Right back soon. Your best friend, Ash. PS. I put in a picture of me, Brock, Max, Pikachu, and May. Hope you like it. Misty went back into the envelope and found a picture of her 4 friends, as well as Pikachu sitting on Ash's shoulder. Misty smiled at this and saw that Brock was on the far left, folding his arms. Max was right to the left of him, Waving his right hand Aros glasses, Ash behind Max with his hands in his jacket pockets. Gripping onto something. Misty focused harder to see what it was, but gave up. She then looked to the left of Ash to see May giving her the peace sign with her right hand, as well as winking too. Misty smiled at the picture, and looked at the old picture she had in a small frame on her desk. It was a picture that was taken quite a while ago. It showed Ash, Misty, Brock, Delia, and Professor Oak all standing in front of Professor Oak's lab. This was one of Misty's most favorite pictures. She smiled and then got an idea. Misty. A knock and a familiar voice was heard from behind her door. Misty walked over to her door and opened it up to see Daisy once again, smiling. "You better hurry or else you'll be late." Daisy winked and pulled Misty out of her bedroom by her collar and started pushing her towards the entrance of the gym. "Late for what?" Misty asked, slowly walking along with her pushing. "You'll see." Daisy grinned and pushed harder. They eventually go outside and Daisy kept pushing Misty until they reached the cerulean dock. Then Daisy suddenly stopped and turned Misty around. "So what's this all about?" Misty asked very angrily, with her fists on her hips. Daisy held up Misty's red pack, which contained all her supplies, and Pokeballs, which contained her Pokémon. "You're gonna really need this where you're going," Daisy said, handing Misty the red pack. Daisy then held up a piece of paper that caught Misty's eyes. "We'll see you whenever, okay Misty? Don't forget to write, okay baby sister," Daisy said, handing Misty the piece of paper. Misty's eyes lit up when she saw what it was. Then the boat whistle blew, and Daisy pushed Misty onto a ship. Misty was getting very tired of this, but was very thankful. "Thanks Daisy. I'll write back. I promise. Take care." Misty waved with a big grin on her face. "You too. Say hi to your boyfriend for me. And Brock too," Daisy said once more, waving back to Misty as the ship started to leave the dock. "He's not my boyfriend." But Misty couldn't be heard now, as the ship was now going out of view, and Daisy was ignoring her. Misty stopped, then looked down at the piece of paper before her. She walked to the residence area of the ship to hand the ticket to the captain. She came to the door and opened it, when she was greeted warmly by the captain. The captain was wearing a black captain's hat, with black hair and beard reaching the bottom of his neck. He seemed to be slightly chubby, but looked like a good man. "Welcome miss. Is this your ticket?" the captain asked, grabbing the ticket but not quite taking it yet. Yes it is." Misty let go of the ticket, as the captain took it and put it into a box. "I knew it was too good to be true," Misty thought to herself. Ash doesn't act like that at all. Then another thought came to her mind. "Excuse me captain, but where is this ship going?" Misty asked, her hands behind her back. "This ship is going to Evergrande City. Don't you even know where you're going?" the captain asked suspiciously. "Well, actually yeah. My sister forced me onto this ship as a surprise I guess," Misty said, sweat dropping. "Ah, I see. Boyfriend. Dear Someth," but the captain was immediately cut off by Misty. "No, I'm not visiting a boyfriend. Just some friends. That's it. He's competing in the Hoenn League." Misty felt shocked by her own words. "Oh, okay then." The captain turned back around without a word, and looked out his window to the open sea. "Sorry sir, but when does this ship come into the dock at Evergrande City?" Misty said quietly, feeling guilty and embarrassed. "It will come in tomorrow miss. Best that you get some rest, cause we'll arrive quite early, 3 a.m. to be exact." Misty's eyes widened. Wow, 3 a.m. That's early, she thought. Thank you sir, Misty said, but the captain didn't say anything and Misty left out the door. "Well, this will be great. I'll be able to visit all my friends again," Misty said to herself, walking down the ship's halls. As she came to the cabins, she saw a lobby in the middle of the room. The ground was made of white marble, with bright red carpets surrounding the whole room. Sty walked up to the desk and asked for a key. "Excuse me, sir. May I have a room?" "Sure ma'am, just 1 second, the man replied, as he turned his back on her, looking for a key. "Oh yes ma'am, almost forgot. What is your first and last name?" "Misty Waterflower," Misty said, putting her hands behind her back and twiddling her fingers. Here we are. Room 202, for a Miss Misty Waterflower," the man said, turning around. Misty took out her hands from behind her back and walked closer to receive the key, as the man put a silver key into her hand. Just go down the hall to the right of me, and it's your third door on the left. Misty smiled, as she looked at the key, grinning. Thank you, she said simply, and started to walk past the man, into the hall he spoke of. Glad to be of assistance, the man said. Smiling and nodded his head. Misty started walking down the hall, and she came across her room. Wow, the service is really cool, she thought as she looked at the door. It read 202 on the door. Misty put the key in, and turned it to the left, as she opened the door to a magnificent suite. The room had green carpet, with a giant chandelier above her, which actually held candles instead of light bulbs. There was 2 beds, 2 queen sizes. Misty's eyes widened, and she walked in, dropping her bag on the ground. She walked further into the room, and into the bathroom, which was also made of white marble. As well as the bathtub itself. She also saw a shower next to it. Wow, I gotta thank Daisy when I get back to the gym, she said to herself, leaning over the bathtub. Excuse me, miss. A voice called out to her. Huh, she said suddenly, being knocked out of her trance. I'm terribly sorry, miss. I seem to have given you the wrong key. The man held out a gold-colored key to her, as she took it. Don't worry about it, she said with a sad smile on her face. Just head out of this door, and it's the room right across from this one, okay? Sorry for the inconvenience, the man apologized, bowing. Oh, really, it's fine, Misty said, waving her right hand as if she was waving a fan at him. The man left immediately, taking the key Misty had in the door and turned the lock on the door. Misty picked up her bag and walked out of the room to one across from her and put the key in, hoping it was going to be even more extravagant than the one she was just in. She opened the door slowly to reveal a room with blue carpet, a bunk bed, and a table in the middle of the room. She walked in and looked at the bathroom, which only had a simple white clay sink, and glass sliding shower. Misty squeezed her fist, stomped her right foot. Figures. Guess the service here isn't entirely too reliable at all, she said to herself quietly and dropped her bag. A white flash came from the bag to reveal a very familiar duck Pokémon. Sigh. The Pokémon said. Not now, Misty said, pulling out the Pokéball from her bag and returning the Pokémon back to its ball. 4 hours later, Misty walked out of the bathroom, still dripping from her shower, and set her bag under the bunk bed, then went back into the bathroom to get dressed. Misty came out a few minutes later dressed in her yellow suit and looked at the clock and saw it read 8:12 p.m. I guess I should probably get some sleep then, she thought, and she shook her hair around and got into bed. Her eyes were still opened wide as she thought about visiting her friends. Ash, she went into a pause, smiled, and closed her eyes. Some time later, Misty woke up in a sweat from the nightmare she just had, shaking her head, as a tear came from her eye. She sat up and grabbed her legs, scrunching herself up. She rocked back and forth very slightly as another tear came from her eye. She looked at the clock and saw that it read 2:39. As the announcer spoke something out to the people on board. Attention all passengers. We will be docking into Evergrande City within slightly delayed due to a Gyarados incident earlier. We apologize for the problem. Have a nice day, the woman said, as the announcement stopped. We're delayed. Grr, Misty said loudly, wiping her tears and jumping out of bed, and grabbed the remote for the TV in her room. She turned on the small 10-inch TV and turned the channel to some news to get her mind off her nightmare. An old man, with a white mustache and a captain's hat, walked into the middle of a large Pokémon stadium. He wore a tiered blue overcoat and blue captain's hat, with no shirt underneath. He wore black army pants and boots as well. The captain pulled a Pokéball from his belt, and threw it out to reveal a Flygon. A dragon that was green, and had dragonfly-like eyes, and a long tail that had 2 spikes at the end. Another young trainer appeared, who had brown hair and wore a blue t-shirt and green jeans. The trainer also threw out a Pokéball to reveal a Rhydon. A rhino-like Pokémon, who had a giant shrill on the top of its head, and stood about 6 feet tall. The news reporter then began to speak. Today, a young trainer by the name of Richard challenged Drake of the Elite Four for the title of champion in the Hoenn region. Drake wiped out the young trainer's Pokémon at no sweat, beating the trainer 4-0. This young trainer had guts, but unfortunately, not the skill to back it up. The reporter stopped and the camera went to a live update. So, how do you feel about this loss? The male reporter asked the boy, sticking the microphone in his face, who seemed very depressed about his handed defeat. The trainer didn't say anything but started to walk faster. Do you think you'll give up Pokemon training forever? The reporter asked again, sticking the microphone in his face again. The boy started to grow angry and started walking very fast now, trying to get away from the reporters. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the reporter started to say as he started slowing down. A quiet answer from such a trainer. But like they said, he had the guts, but unfortunately, not the skill to back it up, the reporter said, looking at the camera. The trainer suddenly stopped and looked at the reporter. He walked over to him, gritting his teeth. It looks like the trainer may have something to say after all. The reporter said excitedly, sticking the microphone in his face once more. The trainer tightened his right fist and punched the reporter across the right side of his face, knocking him down to the ground. The trainer put his fist down and walked away quietly. The reporter stumbled getting up and pointed at the trainer walking away. I'll sue you for this, you little punk. The reporter yelled, holding his jaw. Misty looked shocked and her face of sadness quickly faded as she started to slightly laugh, and she turned off the TV with her remote. She set it down and went over to her bed again. Well, I'll be there soon, Ash. Just you wait, she said quietly, as her stomach started to growl. But lunch sounds like a better idea at the moment, Misty said to herself. Putting her right hand on her stomach and getting up, Misty walked into the main room and saw all the lights were off. All the doors were locked too. She sighed and walked back to her room. Sigh, guess no food for me, she said. Sitting in one of the 5 chairs surrounding table. She rested her head on her right hand, and sat bored, waiting for the ship to dock in. Misty gasped and suddenly remembered her previous dream with Ash. That old guy, Drake, he was the captain of the ship in my dream. Wow, that's weird. She thought to herself, as the announcer came back on. Attention all passengers. It seems that we are actually going to dock in on time. All doors, locks, and areas have been opened. Please exit to the deck to prepare for arrival, the announcer said. Misty looked at her clock one more time and saw that it read 2:57. Wow, that's cool, she said. Misty grabbed her red bag and her room key. Misty walked out of her room and came across the desk. She set the key on the desk and walked across the red carpets, up onto deck. She felt the ocean breeze catch her hair and she welcomed it happily. She put her hair into her familiar ponytail and leaned over the rail, smiling. I'm coming, Misty said, with a determined look on her face. This was the first fanfic I worked on when I started getting to work on fanfic writing. I have corrected many errors and mistakes since the first time I wrote it. However, this story is incomplete. However, also, it will not stay that way. I am on chapter 7, and I have every intention of finishing this fic, even if it kills me. Good day. I don't own Pokemon either. Cries again, but I do own a few made-up characters in this story. Enjoy. To melt the heart of a champion. Chapter 6 The Real Arrival. Misty looked out to sea, as she saw the ship draw closer and closer to the dock. Her heartbeat beating faster and faster with anticipation. She would finally see Ash and Brock again. As well as her other 2 friends, May and Max. Misty started biting her lip. And tapping her left foot on the ground quickly. Come on, can't this rusty boat go any faster? Misty said with a look of anger on her face. This was the kind of look that said, look out. You are gonna be in a world of hurt. Misty started tapping her foot faster and faster until, excuse me everyone, we have now docked at Evergrande City. Please disembark safely and carefully. Have a nice day. Yes, I'm here. Misty yelled out excitedly, as she immediately ran to the dock of Evergrande. Misty looked around and to her confusion, did not see any city. There was nothing but trees, grass, and flowers galore. She stood for a minute, looking for something to point out a town, when she spotted something. Hey, maybe there's a city over there. Misty said happily, seeing a satellite dish on the roof of a house. Misty quickly started running through the forest, ignoring everything around her except getting to the city. She ran faster and faster through T. He woods and ran right into the middle of a dirt road. She stopped dead in the road and looked around at her surroundings. She saw a very large city, much like Celadon City. Celadon City was a very large city that Ash, Misty, and Brock had visited so Ash could get another badge in the Kanto region. Misty had remembered that Ash left them after getting yelled at by Erica and the other employees at a perfume shop. Misty then remembered something else she had forgotten about and slipped, not knowing that Ash had disguised himself as a girl, so he could get into the gym. She remembered she had tend to a story that Erica was telling Misty, Brock, and a bunch of other girls, including Ash. I wish Ash could have heard that story, Misty had said. To her surprise, the new girl had replied with I heard it. After getting shocked by Pikachu, Ash battled Erica and received a rainbow badge. This city seemed to remind Misty a lot of Celadon. Well, I guess I should go to the Pokémon Center and see if Ash is there, Misty said, grabbing her red bag around her shoulder tightly and started running looking for the Evergrande Pokémon Center. After 10 minutes of running around, Misty had become very tired and lost. She couldn't find the Pokémon Center anywhere. Misty decided to ask someone for directions. She saw a young man about Ash's age walking around. He had a grayness to his hair and wore a bandana around his head, which had a white Pokéball on it. He was dressed with black clothes, and had red outlinings, which covered his whole body. Excuse me, Misty yelled, running over to the man, panting with her head down. Can I help you with something? The young man asked. Yeah, I need directions. I need to get to the Pokémon Center. Oh, well, this must be your first time here then. See those two silver buildings over there? Go past those two buildings, and behind them is the Pokémon Center. It's pretty well hidden, so keep an eye out, the young man said, pointing towards the buildings he described. Thank you. Well, see ya, Misty said, running off once again. The boy looked. Then he turned around and looked at a piece of paper. It was a bracket to show who he would be fighting in the Hoenn League. He took out a pen and check-marked something, then stuffed the paper and pen into his brown backpack, and continued walking. Misty was finally getting some progress. She had passed the two buildings and had gone behind them. She could see the Pokémon Center now. It was probably no further than a mile away. There it is, Misty yelled out happily, as she now started skipping. She then stopped for a minute, noticing a big cloud of dirt coming towards her quickly. She started at it to see if there was anything, or anyone causing it. It started to come into view, and it was racing faster as it drew closer and closer to Misty. Ash, Misty yelled, surprised to see him racing at her. Ash didn't stop or slow down though. His eyes were closed, and he seemed to be running away from death itself. Ash then ran smack right into Misty, knocking her down to the ground, and they started rolling across the ground furiously. They kept somersaulting forward, until Ash was face forward on top of Misty. He was positioned on her, shaping their bodies into a cross. Misty, dazed, got up and saw Ash with his face in the dirt. She saw another person running towards them, which immediately snapped Ash into reality. May, Misty yelled confused. May was almost up to where Misty and Ash were. May was running towards them with a giant yellow mallet. She suddenly stopped at Misty's feet and waved. Hi Misty. Long time, no see, she said, as if nothing was happening. Misty could see something had happened apparently. Hi May, ha, Misty said, nervously, also waving back. May, wait. I'm sorry. Won't happen again. I didn't even see anything, I swear. Ash yelled, standing up, shaking his hands at May. Yeah, right, May said, raising her mallet. Misty then stood between the two, holding her arms out in front of May. What's going on here? Misty asked, curious to know. Oh, well, this young man was peeking where he shouldn't be peeking. May yelled furiously at Ash, putting down her mallet. No, I wasn't. I just came in to get my Pokeballs, and I accidentally saw you dipping your foot in the bathtub water. I didn't see anything, I swear, Ash said, trying to convince her. Huh, Misty said in confusion. Let me explain, May said, shooting a look of disgust at Ash. Misty and May stepped away from Ash a little as May started whispering to Misty about what happened. Misty just laughed and shook her right hand. Ha, that reminds of something similar that happened to me and Ash too, Misty said, sweat dropping. That kind of thing also happened to me, but don't worry. Ash isn't like that, Misty said, also trying to convince her. Well, if you say so. So what are you doing back here, Misty? May asked happily, throwing her mallet aside. My sister, Daisy, forced me onto a ship leaving to Evergrande City, so I didn't complain. I got on and here I am. Misty said, now smiling. That's great, Misty. Ash said, now coming out from behind Misty, smiling and giving her a short hug. They parted and headed to the Pokémon Center. Hey Brock. Ash called out to Brock. Look who we found. Ash said, pointing behind him, with his thumb. Misty. Good to see you. Brock said, running over to Misty, shaking her hand happily. So, now the team's all here. Ash said, giving the peace sign to Misty. After meeting up and exchanging some stories, including Misty's story of Daisy and her own love discs. Ash asked excitedly if he could see it. Misty released the Pokémon from its ball and the little pink, heart-shaped Pokémon looked around and saw Ash. After seeing Ash, it hopped happily towards Ash, rubbing against Ash's leg. The Luvdisc then turned around and looked at Misty as it kept calling out its name, seeming like it was asking Misty a question. Misty just stared, almost frightened, and returned the little Pokémon to its ball. Ash was confused but didn't pay any attention to it. Brock wasn't fooled though. Ash and the rest of the gang Hoenn decided to take a break and go down to the beach for some fun. Pikachu. Ready to go have some fun, buddy? Ash asked his yellow companion, who as always, was sitting on his favorite spot on Ash's shoulder. Hi Pikachu. Pikachu cried, raising his arm. Pikachu jumped down from Ash's shoulder and started running towards the ocean quickly. Wait Pikachu. Ash yelled out. We have to get swimwear and some boards, Pikachu. Pikachu turned around back to its master, and started scratching the back of his head nervously. Don't worry Pikachu, we'll be ready in a minute. Come on buddy, Ash told Pikachu, signaling for him to jump back onto his shoulder. Pikachu did so and they headed to the bathrooms. Ash came out wearing a simple pair of trunks which were dark blue, and no shirt. Brock came out from behind him, who was also not wearing a shirt, wearing a simple pair of trunks too, which were orange with white outlining on the top of the trunks. Max came out from behind them, who was wearing a white t-shirt, and green trunks. Where's May? Max asked. I'm sure she's still getting ready, Brock assured Max. Yeah, that's true. She usually always takes a while, Max replied, agreeing with Brock. Sure enough, after a few more minutes of waiting, May came out of the girls' bathroom, wearing a two-piece bikini, which was green, and has white outlining. May was holding open the door for Misty, who walked out wearing a two-piece as well, which was orange and had bubbles imprinted into it. You guys ready to go have some fun? Ash asked everybody. Yeah, everyone replied, as they all started heading towards the beach excitedly. Pikachu ahead of everyone else. They all ran into the water, splashing and soaking each other with the salty water of the sea. Well, I'll go get us some surfboards, Brock said to Ash. Alright, we'll see ya in a little bit, Ash replied, dunking Pikachu. Pika, Pikachu said as Ash saw him starting to charge a thunderbolt. No Pikachu. Not here, Ash said frightened. Pika, Pikachu said sadly, getting its head above water to look at Ash. Sorry buddy, Ash said, petting his pal's head. What, only 4 boards left? Brock asked the clerk. I'm sorry dude, but I'm afraid that's all that's left, the clerk said to Brock. Dawn. Brock stopped for a second to actually think this through. Aha, Brock said suddenly, a smile on his face now. 4 is fine, Brock said. Okay, dude, that'll be $20, the clerk said to Brock. Brock handed the clerk $20 and walked out the door with 4 boards in his arms. Hope this works, Brock muttered to himself. Hey guys, Brock screamed out to his friends, as he came running towards them all. Everybody waved and looked at Brock's arms and saw the boards. Everybody rushed Brock and took all the boards, leaving Brock with no board for himself. Well, there goes that plan, Brock thought to himself, with a glum look on his face. Brock wasn't disappointed for long, as he caught eye of a brown-haired girl, wearing a two-piece, pink-colored bikini. Brock immediately ran to the girl, grabbing her hand and getting down on one knee. Oh, it must be fate that brought us together, or perhaps it was even, Brock said quickly to the girl. but was hit over the head with something. We're here for Ash's matches and to have fun. Not to go around flirting with girls, Brock, said an angry Misty, who apparently hit Brock with her trusty mallet. Now, come on. We're going into the ocean, and we're going to have fun, and you're going to enjoy it. Misty yelled, dragging Brock by his hair. Misty came to the water's edge, and stopped for a moment. Taking in the fresh breeze of the ocean, Brock suddenly felt lighter and opened his eyes to see that he was falling towards the water. Ah! Brock yelled, as he fell into the salty water below him. Maybe now you'll stop, Misty said to herself, and then jumped into the water herself. Ash and his friends played in the ocean for what seemed like hours. Huh, did you guys feel that? Ash asked Misty. Feel what? Misty replied, curious to know Hoenn. I thought I felt some there. Did you feel that? Ash asked everybody this time. Huh, Brock said, looking at Ash strangely. Guys, look, Misty said frightened, as she pointed out to sea a giant tidal wave coming towards them. Ah, it's gonna hit us. Swim away. Brock yelled to everybody as they started swimming. But the wave was much too big, as the wave was only a few feet from crashing on everyone. Altaria, ice beam now, cried out an old man, and the old man's Altaria did so, and shot an ice beam which immediately froze the crashing wave into a solid block of ice. Huh, did you guys see that? Ash pointed to the Altaria that shot the ice beam. Wow, that was a powerful ice beam, ensured Max. Everybody walked out onto the beach to see this man, who Misty recognized immediately as the captain in her dream. I know who that is. He's Drake, the Dragon Master of Hoenn's Elite Four. Max said excitedly, pointing at the old man. You kids all right? Drake asked quietly. Yes sir. Thank you so much, May said, with her hands clasped together. That's him. That's the man that was in my dream, Misty thought to herself. You okay, Misty? Ash asked, as he noticed she was staring off into space. Huh, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Thank you for rescuing me and my friends, Misty said to the man. Of course. Well, I should be going. Many things to be doing, the man said, and with that he started to walk away. That was really nice of him, but I guess we should get going now. It looks like it's getting pretty late, Brock said. Yeah, I guess you're right. Hey, Max, maybe you can tell me how this whole league thing is gonna work, since I'm going to need to be in tip-top shape for tomorrow, Ash said to Max. Sure Ash. Okay. Now pay attention. There are going to be 16 contestants in the league, including yourself. So, you're going to have to win 4 straight victories. If you do, then you've won the league, although however, Max said. Pausing for a moment. However, Misty asked, concerned. Well, the winner can decide to do one of two things. He or she can either decide to take the trophy and be the champion of the Hoenn League. Or he can choose to continue on to defeat the Elite Four, Max said seriously. Elite Four? Ash asked, puzzled. Yeah, it's where you fight Hoenn's 4 most powerful trainers. They are Sydney, Phoebe, Glacia, and Drake. If the challenger can defeat all 4, then he or she is the champion of Hoenn if there isn't already one, and a bigger trophy. Although, the winner of the league can hold their challenge for as long as they wish, so they don't have to challenge the Elite Four right away if they don't want to. Fortunately, there is no champion of Hoenn, Max said, closing his navigator. Well, then if I do make it there, I'm gonna challenge the Elite Four. Ash said, confidently. So typical of him, Misty thought to herself. 2 hours later, they all finally head back to the Pokémon Center to catch up on some sleep and to decide what Pokémon Ash is going to use. So Ash, which ones? Misty asked, getting somewhat irritated now, sitting at the computer. Misty typed in some stuff, then turned to face Ash. Well, looks like you're all set to go, Misty said to Ash, smiling. Great, Misty, said Ash, looking towards the door to their room. I guess we should go tell the rest of them, huh? Misty asked, getting up from her chair. Yeah, I guess so. I'm pretty hungry anyways, Ash rubbed his stomach, showing hunger. Ash and Misty went out to the lobby of the Pokémon Center to look for Brock, May, and Max to tell them that Ash had finally registered his Pokémon into the league. After some looking around, they finally found them in one of Ash's most favorite spots, the cafeteria. Hey guys. Misty waved to Brock and the group, but was pushed by Ash, as he made a mad dash for the food. I'll take that, and that looks weird too, so I'll take some of that too. Ash kept telling the woman giving out the food. So Misty, how'd it go? Brock asked, chomping on an egg roll. Misty took up a chair, sitting next to another empty one, then turned to look at Brock. Well, I guess Ash is going to use Pikachu, Swellow, and Corphish for his first battle, Misty said, looking over at Ash grab food from all sorts of areas. Do you Hinky May getting a little ahead of himself? May asked Misty. He always does. He always looks to the biggest challenges out there, Misty replied, now getting up from her chair. I think I'm going to go get some food too. All right, the three kids replied. Misty walked over to where Ash was, and started to pick out some things. That looks interesting, what's that? Misty pointed to a fish. Misty listened to the woman go into detail about the fish's diet, origin, and living patterns. However, Ash had already left to the table that Brock, May, and Max were sitting at. Where's Misty? Ash asked, a hot dog in his mouth. Over there, Brock pointed to a seemingly bored Misty who seemed to be getting tired of the woman's history lesson. I'll take it, Misty said, and watched the woman stop, pause for a moment. Then moved to get the fish. Misty walked over to the table that the rest of the gang was sitting to see a beached Ash, a happy Pikachu, and three embarrassed friends. So, Misty, does Ash always overeat like this? May asked, sweat dropping. Of course, he's a garbage disposal, Misty giggled, looking at Ash. Hey, I am not, Ash said in defiance. You are too, Ash, Misty said, giving Ash a cruel smile. HMPH. Ash grunted, folding his arms. After some much-needed food, they all decided to catch up on some good sleep for tomorrow's matches. The first round would be held tomorrow, so they needed to get up early. Get up, yelled a very loud voice. What's going on? What's happening? Ash yelled, scared. Remember, the Hoenn League, Ash. We gotta hurry or we're going to be late. Brock, May, and Max are waiting for us. Misty yelled, grabbing Ash by his shirt and tugging him out of the room. Welcome to the Hoenn League, trainers. We hope you've got enough practice. Bekasu, your skills are about to be put to the test. Now, please give a warm welcome to the Elite Four. The announcer said. The four members of the Elite walked out onto the stadium, as the audience clapped and cheered. We hope to see your best. Show us what you've got. Drake yelled, raising his arms. Show us your most mysterious moves. Phoebe said. Show no mercy. Glacia said. Have confidence and go forth. Sydney said. The Elite Four, saying this, bowed and then begun to leave the stadium. The first round of the Hoenn League shall be held today. The first match will be held between Carlos from Kanto's Celadon City and Jacob of Hoenn's Rustboro City. The announcer finished. A boy came out from each end of the stadium, one dressed in a red t-shirt and black pants, and the other dressed in a purple t-shirt and white pants. The people couldn't really get a good look at the two boys, but that was usually never where the excitement was. It was the Pokémon. Ash and Misty finally got to the stadium and begun to look for seats. Brock waved to Ash and Misty from the top seats, and they went up to sit with him. Let the battle begin, the announcer pronounced, which began the start of the Hoenn League. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all are enjoyed this video. If you do, please leave a like, share and subscribe. Also don't forget to support author of this fanfic. So let's end this video here. Until then, see you in next video. Sent flying into Ash as they rolled down the boat and ran smack